Good morning everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Lego Legend of Zelda Custom Set Showcase Wave 8, where today we are taking a look at yet another Tears of the Kingdom custom set based off the latest game. And today we're going to be taking a look at promised as Z0072 with 886 pieces. This is the Frox mining encounter, our first dive into the of the depths, and one of 3 sets that will be taking place down here across our 18 set wave. Now we're getting quite deep into the wave now, although plenty more to come, and this is of course Z0072, the Frox mining encounter for ages 8 and up with 886 pieces, retailing for £79.99 Great British pounds, with only 2 fully fledged minifigures this time and 4 brick built characters, one of which of course being the Frox and the other 3 being the little Frox, so kind of only 2 pieces, but they count, I promise they count. So let's open up our box, but before we do so, of course, let me read out today's set description. Dive deep below the surface and discover a mysterious world full of treasure, guarded by fearsome monsters in the brand new Lego Legend of Zelda playset. Begin your exploration of the depths and search for zoanite, but watch out for terrifying shadows as the Lego jumping Frox leaps towards you. Break the oars on its back and watch out for the spring movement legs and tail for extra realistic play. Dodge the 3 little Froxes and fire bomb arrows to take down the Gloombergoblin outpost before claiming your treasure and defeating the Frox to fuse weapons, but be careful and don't get swallowed. And that kind of hints at some of the play features that we'll be seeing today, but of course to take a look at those we're going to open up our box and find that we have 9 numbered bags and just 1 large instruction manual today, once again being inconsistent like the real ones. Still don't like that white style, although sometimes it does look alright. And inside that instruction manual we will see how these bags break down the build, and bag 1 gives us our Gloombergoblin and builds the entire side outpost featuring all the depths landscapes that we'll take a look at in a second. Bag 2 starts the Frox and actually puts in the joints of the Frox's back legs. I'll be telling you more about what makes those special later on today. Bag 3 gives us our depth set Link minifigure as well as builds up the majority of the body. Bag 4 starts the top of the head, and bag 4 gives us our first little Frox while doing the jaw assembly. Bag 6 does one of the 2 front legs. Bag 7 does the second of the 2 front legs, giving us our second of 3 small Froxes. Bag 8 does both of the back legs, and bag 9 finishes it off with all of the details, the 3rd little Frox, and of course the oars on the back as well, completing out our build, which is obviously majoritively focused around the giant Frox, another giant enemy sort of taking over the main function of a set. And here is that set all built up together, 2 major elements to start with, and I'm going to start with the element which I think is potentially more important for the series as a whole, and that is of course this is the depth encampment. This is based off the variety of mining encampments that you see down in the depths and has a couple of different elements that we haven't yet seen in custom sets. So most importantly here is the colour palette. I've chosen for the ground of the depths, the ground is going to be made up of sand green to match the almost coccolithophore appearance that we see across the depths. For those of you who don't know what a coccolithophore is, that would be a small creature that is commonly living in calcium cliffs, and to me that is what the imagery of the depths floor lines up to. On the floor also we have some poes, which we'll take a closer look in the centre. The forts are built up with the usual wood palette, however we have a mushroom tree which is also using a unique palette. Now these mushroom trees are obviously quite distinct, and to me at least we have sand green canopies with tan to represent the tendrils underneath, along with dark tan to represent the trunks of these odd trees. We have obviously a couple of other details, but first let's spin it around and see what's at the back of this encampment. Taking a little bit of a difference from the game I suppose here, we have 2 crates as well as a chest. Taking a look down the bottom, you can see we're making use of the recoloured flame piece for the ancient cities from Minecraft to represent the pose here, stuck into the ground on minifigure stamp pieces. And here's another one stuck into the top of those mushroom trees as mentioned, which are just really made to work using these dishes. And these won't be the last time we're seeing these trees appear in the showcase. On the top, of course, you've got plenty of space to put your Gloombergoblin figure, as well as you've got a backpack piece for him to mine zoanite, and the zoanite cube included, which is a build we actually saw in Lookout Landing, built up of 2 plates and a tile, will fit into that backpack and then could obviously be put around the Bogoblin's neck. You've also got a pickaxe here for him to hold so that he could be mining from the crystal just behind him. Over on the lower platform you can see there is a bow, as well as a small blight broom seed. This could either have been placed by the monsters or Link as he's coming in, but it also has another weapon for our Gloombergoblin to defend himself. At the top, as mentioned, there is a zoanite sort of ore build. This ore build is actually very, very similar to the one I chose to use on the top of my Talus build back in the Talus encampment set from what will be Wave 6. You can see here the build is just sort of rounded around a core where there's a little bit of dark orange and turquoise to sort of represent the zoanite colour scheme shining through in its raw form, and obviously this can very easily be broken off a stud and removed there, and we'll see these again actually on the Frox's back. Around the back though, there's a couple of details. You'll notice there's a shovel as well as a pickaxe, more mining equipment, but also in this other container a strange looking build, and this is actually supposed to be a stemellastrum on a stick, representing a fused weapon that the Bokoblin could use to sort of ward Link and knock him off the platform. So a different fused weapon in here, but more importantly is the stick that makes up that fuse, as well as the first inclusion of stemellastrums of course. But in the back of course is a chest with more zoanite pieces, 3 to be precise, made again up of 2 plates, 1 turquoise and 2 black, with a tile on the top, and again this is the same as the build we saw in Lookout Landing, being consistent, and it will not be the last time that we see this build. But let's move on to the big man himself, and here you can see that from his front on perspective he is pretty menacing. Taking a look at his lower jaw, you can see it curves round to underneath, and the sort of bulbous like frog-like sort of chin element is recreated using a 4x4 dome recolored to dark turquoise. There are also plenty of other spots to represent the harder elements or the warts you might think on the frog's skin, but of course it is all built around that dome or like air pouch that would obviously make a frog go ribbit. Now, of course, that jaw can move because the most iconic part of Frox is the fact that it can swallow you, but let's take a look at some other details first. We have the little like knob on the top of his head, built here using a dome in dark turquoise, potentially my least favourite part usage here, but inside this arch piece we can see a recessed version of the eye representing how hard it is to sit and sort of the idea of an eyelid. Its nose is actually used in a recolored roller skate here, which I think is a really clever part usage to sort of achieve a smelt looking sort of piece because a Frox nose is very, very small. Taking a closer look up at that mouth, you can see that I've recreated the tusks here using a variety of different pieces in dark tan. This includes the inverted boat stud, the spiky core element that was introduced for Next Nights, as well as the new dragon horn element introduced in the Ninjago core lineup at the beginning of this year. There's also a variety of tan pieces for the teeth on the inside, and as of course this mouth is a function. Here you can see the mouth in its closed position, but of course whenever you want to you can hinge it downwards and open, ready for him to inhale in any minifigure, and that, although it looking very small here, is a surprisingly big gap for you to put a minifigure into. So here of course you can see him inhaling as Link gets blown towards the gap and swallowed up inside, where you can actually store a minifigure in the chest cavity, which is very, very cool, and of course you can munch and open and close the mouth at will. Now, one last thing that's associated with the mouth, I mentioned this stemellastrum earlier and how it comes with fused, in a sense, to a wood stick. If you were to unfuse our stemellastrum, you could actually pull off the Frox's tooth as if you defeated it, and then using the Frox Fang element as it appears in game, you could actually stick the wooden stick from the stemellastrum in here to change up Link's fused weapons, sort of representing more of that gameplay loop in game. I actually really like the inclusion of this feature. I think it's quite smart, and we saw something like it in Secret Cave Discovery with a rock boulder hammer. Let's move away from the face for now and onto the legs. You can see here that the back legs are actually a little bit smaller than the front pair, and they both have varying degrees of articulation. Once again, the dark turquoise is available across all of the legs as different kinds of spots, but before we look at that articulation, let's take a quick look on the back, where once again you can see 4 more zoanite capsules, just like how it would appear in game, ready for you to smash them off, and of course these are all on jumper studs, allowing their removal easily as if you were smashing them off with various different implements. I guess in this case the Frox Fang, or maybe you'd be misusing the boulder from Secret Cave Discovery, or even the stemellastrum. I don't know, you can use whatever weapon you like. The bomb arrows perhaps that are included on this figure. But those guys on the back give you an idea of the scale here. And you may be looking at this image and going, well, Octane, that's not sat on the floor properly. It's very clear that he is leaping, and that is obviously the main plate feature of this set. Froxes are known for their ability to jump all over the depths, including their ability to sort of knock you out the sky as they go. And we've used some very clever techniques to make these legs have not only articulation, but the ability to make the Frox look like he's jumping. And that's our main play feature for today. But before we get to that, let's take a quick look at the toes. Obviously there's a little bit of wrist articulation, as well as the toes are able to move up and down, and are represented here with a rounded tile to recreate the Frox fingernail element that of course once again is a weapon fusion, although not one that I've actively encouraged you to stick on that wooden stick in today's set. Obviously the legs, as I mentioned, can move backwards and forwards. These front two are actually on just normal pivot joints, not ball joints, the more heavy duty version, and you can see here that they can move backwards and forwards, but then also in and out, and this one's a little hard to see, but there's a very subtle change in angle here, just allowing that little bit more posability and to have a more spread out stance. And while it doesn't look like it's much here at this joint, obviously that does make a bigger impact at the foot at the bottom. Okay, so let's jump into that main function now, and as you can see here, it is just simply because of the legs being on this very, very loose joint system that is still perfectly secure but allows the legs to flop around. Beyond this, the tail also drops down, allowing sort of a complete change of posture from when we jump into the air, and this will just happen as soon as you lift the Frox off the floor. In fact, this feature also allows you to sort of make the Frox rear up as if it's going to slap the ground, but it gives you a variety of different positions to put this guy in order to simulate movement, and specifically its jumping animation. I'll show you some better images in a second, but I thought it's best to give you a real-world comparison. So this feature is actually strongly inspired by the Mighty Bowser set, and the ability that this guy had was that as a puppet, when you lifted him up, his legs would sort of swing inwards, as represented by these arrows, to make him look like he's jumping, and then when you put him back on the ground, they'd spread apart to form a sturdy position for him to rest in. And that is the same principle that we have here with the Frox. But it also specifically allows us to recreate poses like this here, where you've got our Depths Link running away as the Frox sort of jumps onto him, which is one of his signature attack moves and really key to the play and fun in this set. Here you can see from above when he's doing his big jump and how the legs are spread out, and I think it looks absolutely fantastic. But let's show you that motion more in detail here. So as mentioned, you can then lift him off the ground, and not only have you got that posability in the front two legs, but the back two legs will go from this stationary position where the weight of the Frox itself is keeping them like this because they can't move any more forwards, like more inwards, so here stay upright as is, but as soon as those legs are allowed to flop free, they're going to dangle down with their weight because the toes are obviously heavier, and then as you bring it back to the ground, they're going to snap back forward, allowing him to look like it's a jumping motion and him to rip it all over the place, which is such a cool function. Let's show you one last time. As he jumps into the air, those legs drop down and out, and then the slap back, making use of the same joints as in the Mighty Bowser's legs. Let's move into our figures now for a little bit, and here we have the Depth set from Tears of the Kingdom for our Link variant today. It's actually using just a new print on a black magic hat, as well as one of the existing Ninjago wraps with a unique face print underneath to represent the weird cloth cuts. This means that we can get away without a new mold for this figure, which is super exciting. Lots of gold printing across the hat, arms, and then of course torso, with the legs actually not being dual molded and just featuring some dark purple printing. Definitely bringing those colours more to a pop here, because in the game obviously they're very muted, but that colour does not really exist in our portfolio palette here, so of course we're bringing it into the nearest, which is dark purple. Another very intricate design, not particularly fun to draw, but definitely looks fantastic. Because this figure also comes with a bow element, but not only that, it also comes with a bomb, which is a minifigure head with a light yellow flower on top to represent this game's bomb flower, and this of course is integral to not only the Frox box fight, but it's a common item found in the depths, and we haven't actually included it anywhere else in the wave so far, so makes fitting sense to have here. Next up we have the Gloom Bokoblin here, a unique variant printing on the Tears of the Kingdom Bokoblin. As always, these guys are having the horns from the accessory pack, and I'm not going to show you that today because I'm sure you all know by now, and this guy of course has the weaponry around him in his encampment. However, the figure is of course a little bit different to what we'd normally see from a normal Tears of the Kingdom Bokoblin, with the eyes being a different colour and with this gloom printing being put uniquely over all the arms, torso, legs and head. He's the only gloom variant that's going to be appearing in the entire wave, at least to my knowledge at this point in time. I wanted to include one variant for the depths, however, nothing hugely special, but I do like how he turned out. Moving into the figure that we haven't really talked about at all to this point, and I think it's going to go underlooked as a whole, we have these guys, the little Frox. Now these guys are based off, well, obviously the in-game model, but as a Lego piece they're actually based off the Lego Axolotls from Minecraft, as well as more specifically the Silverfish from 2018's Bedrock Adventure, a mod that stayed exclusive to one set. Basically this is a small piece of plastic that's highly moulded, with a gap in the body for a 1x1 stud, a 1x1 plate to go in the middle. As you can see, they represent obviously the existing model in game using the same colour scheme as our big Frox, including dark turquoise, sand green and a little bit of tan printing. It's a unique way to represent this guy, and of course you get 3 of them in the set, which is fantastic to sort of build them up as an army. A great inclusion, and this is definitely where I'd rather put my mold budget for this set. I think it really adds a lot to the depths, and I'd love to have a small army of them as well. But of course the last final character in this set is of course the Big Frox, and comparing him to his in-game model you can see that not much really changed. Obviously a lot of the finer hairs and stranger details were lost, as well as the ability to have like printing on the dome piece on the very top to recreate his sort of head crest more interestingly. Now some might argue that the colour scheme I chose actually represents the blue-white Frox a little bit better, however I think sand blue is still the right way to go for this guy, as I don't think doing him in black would obviously be obsidian Frox in the middle, and I think doing him in dark grey would be incredibly boring. So sand blue sort of recreates that depth hue really nicely, and yeah, I suppose bridges a little bit too in the middle between the blue-white Frox and the normal Frox. But you get what you get, and I think this is a fantastic colour choice for the system. I'm particularly pleased with the mouth and the head area. I think that's my favourite part, specifically the tusks, and then obviously their ability to link in with the fuse system. A really nice feature. Once again, this set does not feature a single secret stone, which is just okay. And here's a little picture with all of the little Froxes surrounding the Big Frox. Once again, those little Froxes, such a cute inclusion. I really think those are going to fly under the radar as the wave in the hole. I mean, I basically forgot to talk about them for today, but I really like the idea of having a group of them that can mob your minifigure. Adds a nice little bit of extra play. And that's actually going to do it for today's Z0072, the Frox mining encounter. Our first dive into the depths, and I hope it didn't disappoint, because there's a lot to love here. Once again, for a person that claims to not be good at building characters, I think this is another case with the Hinox, where it just kind of worked out alright. And there's still a couple more of these guys to come, and this one definitely isn't my favourite in the wave, but there's a surprising lot to love here, and I've kind of surprised myself again, especially for someone that prefers building landscapes. Definitely be curious to see your thoughts on the depths colour palette as well, just because obviously I'm going to be changing up and there's going to be more sets that are going to need it. I know that potentially some of you would prefer to see a dark tan for the rocks, but I think I'm going to stick with the dark bluish grey, just so that it will contrast more with some of the other elements that we're going to see, especially the trees and so on in the future sets we have planned. But if you have a strong enough objection, lay down your argument in the comment below. But as for next time, of course, this is the big one, the one that most of you have been waiting for. This is 0078, this is Arc, and will contain, at last, our second secret stone, as well as a banner, and we haven't really discussed what those are. Now it should be really obvious what this is, but this is actually the second biggest set in the wave, straight behind Lookout Landing, and is the largest play set, not an 18+ set obviously like Lookout was, and of course this is going to feature one very spectacular element, as well as a curious take. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. But anyway, tune in soon for that one as we head into November. A couple more videos coming on in between. And of course, just give me some general feedback on this one as well. We're using a new laptop now, so let me know if anything sucks. But leave the thoughts down below and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.